Hi there everybody. On today's video I have this BMW 318i. This is an E90 2008. I'm gonna be changing the oil filter, the air filter, topping up some screen wash fluid, and checking the coolant level, and checking the antifreeze percentage. And I'm gonna start by topping up some of the screen wash fluid. I am remaking some of the videos I have made in the past. That is, one is because I'm using a new camera, and perhaps the picture will be much better, and also because I'm adding a little extra to the usual oil and oil filter change. So if you're serving your car, then you can carry out these checks as well. So like I said, I'm going to start by topping up some screen wash fluid, which you can buy in any garage, petrol station, concentrated or already mixed, and I guess the already mixed one would be better. Just top it up on that container down there. Once that is full, you can just close that cap, and then I'm going to move on to checking the coolant. But just before that, I wanted to mention this is the oil filter I'm going to be using. Again, that's that Malay make, the OX166, and that should come with all the bits that you need, including copper washer, and the air filter I'm going to be using is also a Malay one, LX1651. For the sump plug bolt, I'm going to be using a 17mm socket. That is to drain the oil from underneath. It's usually a 17mm. And for the oil filter housing, I'm going to be using this tool. This is a S40 S80 or 8616. This came as a set, so obviously I have a set of these, but this particular size fits most BMWs with that type of filter. So for the air filter itself, I'm just gonna need a flathead screwdriver and a 10mm socket, and also a Torx, a T20 I think it is, to remove some screws here. 3 screws. So we'll go through that in a minute, and just gonna check the coolant. So the coolant will be in that black expansion tank there, and also that tank has a couple of markings there, just showing you the level that this should be. So there's a little floater inside of this tank, and if the floater is sticking up, there's 2 little bolts. If the ball, so if the little floater is sticking out with the second ball level with the with this area of the expansion tank, then it's at the max. And if it's just sitting below, and the ball at the top is lined up with the edge of the expansion tank, then it's at the minimum, and it will need to be topped up. So let's have a look at that now. remember if the engine's been running. Coolant can be very hot and dangerous. You can burn yourself, so even though these are made for safety, you can always be careful when opening it as well, and or do it slowly. Just let the pressure go, and that's the little floater. Now I can already see there's the two little marks here. One is there and one is there. So if this mark, the one down here, is lined up with this, then that is at the max. And if this was sitting down there, then they would be at the minimum. So this is sitting a little bit lower, nothing tragic. So the level is just fine. I won't be doing anything with that. If it was really low, if it was really down, then you would wonder why, and then you will want to check for any leaks or any minor leaks that could be happening around. In this case, obviously, with time it can go down a little bit. Plus, obviously, the manufacturers recommend to change every 2 years. So if you did that, if everybody changed it every 2 years, then you would probably always be at the right level. Now, that little gadget there helps me measure the amount of antifreeze on this tank. I'm sure there's more modern gadgets out there. This one works okay for me. This is Worth, and it's saying -35. You can also check the color of the coolant, and also you can check how clear it is. So that looks very nice and clear, and you don't have to make any assumptions that it's contaminated or anything. It looks good. And -35 is very good. It will have to be that cold for that to freeze, basically. So you can go ahead and close that. And when this is completely closed, you will feel a little click, and then the two arrows match. There's an arrow there and there's an arrow there. The two arrows match, and then you know that is properly closed. So now we can move on to the air filter. And like I said, I think it's a T20. Just remove that cover. While you remove that cover, you can also check the condition of the belt that is down there, the fan belt. This one is okay. I mean, this car is only done 33,000 miles, although there seems to be an oil leak, because I can see a wet patch there. I'm not sure where that might be coming from. It's not huge, but something to investigate. Nevertheless, you can check the belt. Just check for any cracks on the belt. So that belt is okay. It doesn't have cracks or anything. They do start wearing out, although with the years, obviously. So sometimes it's a good idea to change them anyway, because you don't want them to break on you, and then you have to and then you break down, basically. Okay, let's move on to the filter. So 2 10mm bolts. And with a flathead screwdriver, just gonna open these clips. I find it easier if I loosen both clips, and then I have a bit more movement here. Also often when we remove that that cover, that little rubber mount there tends to come loose. Sometimes it drops to the side, so you might be able to see it's come out. So just push it back in there, but sometimes it drops down there, and then kind of gets lost. So, but I normally find it. Okay, now we just need to remove some forks. Which is T25. Remove the filter. Again, this one is not too tragically dirty, and that's the new one. So I usually put a little bit of grease around here, just to make it go in nicely in there. Also, if you find this is really dirty, then just give it a clean, obviously. There will be some leaves and dirt, possibly any bees and flies and things, anything that goes. That goes there. Just push it all the way in. And then get the cover back on. Okay, just make sure all the little screws line up properly. it's a little bit awkward. Also, if you're tightening these by hand, just do it once they're closed, they're closed. You don't need to over tighten them because they're only going into plastic, so they can get damaged. I mean, this bit gets damaged. Okay, now we can just refit that back. So with this hand I try to feel the little mount underneath, because there's a little hole on this, and that fits on top of that rubber. Again, no need to over tighten those 10mm bolts. And now we're gonna tighten the little clips as well, the circlips. Okay, now we can move on to the oil and the oil filter. I'm not going to refit this cover yet because I just want to investigate that oil leak down there. So for now I'm going to leave it open, but it's just a matter of plugging it into there and 3 torques obviously. So I'm going to open the oil filter housing there. If you leave it there for a few seconds, the oil will drain down and then you have less of a mess. So I'm just opening the oil filler cap as well. And now we're pretty much ready to get the car up and drain the oil. If you're working outside and you remove this, make sure you cover that hole so nothing flies in there, dirt or leaves or birds or planes, anything. Especially on windy days like today, it's really windy and everything would fly there, so you want to avoid problems. Don't give problems for yourself. So remove that now. And we'll take care of that filter while we drain the oil underneath. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Get the car up. So with a flathead screwdriver, just need to open this. Open this little cover, and in there is the 17mm some black bolt. So You can crack that open. Obviously make sure you have an oil pan underneath, and also remember that if the engine's been running, the oil can be very hot, so just be careful. So let that drain for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we can close that, and then we'll be ready to top up some oil and refit our oil filter. But while that is draining, we can prepare our oil filter. So that's our filter there, and we just need to pull this oil filter out. It's a little hard sometimes, but shouldn't be too bad. And also we want to remove the O-rings. There's 3 of them. So there's the sun plug as well, and that's the little copper washer. But we have another copper washer in here. New O-rings. And just make sure that goes in the correct groove. And then I'm just gonna put a little bit of grease around here. And that's just mainly so when we screw this on back on, that O-ring will sit nicely, will be able to sit nicely. And you can push the new filter in there. And that's it. That is basically ready to go back on. So now we can refit our sun plug bolt. So I always get it in a little bit by hand first, just making sure it's going in the right way. Okay, that's it. Now just clean the area there. From any oil that may have spilled around, and we can just close this cover. If you just put a little bit of WD-40, it helps that little thing move a little bit easier, and then because this is getting a bit damaged here, so if you experience the same, just add a little bit of WD-40 and then it will move a lot easier. Right, now I'm gonna get the car down and we can top up some oil and refit the oil filter. Okay, now we're ready to refit our filter. And I always get it in by hand a little bit, make sure I'm not damaging the thread. And we'll also top up some oil, so the manual states 4.25 liters and they recommend 5W30. Now there is a little chart on the manual that shows you the oil grades that you can use, and a little bit dependent on the temperature of where you live. So here in the UK I just use 5W30. Now I've got my Castrol 5W30 here. Okay, 4.25. And I'm just going to refit the this cover now. It looks like the oil leak I have is coming from the oil filter housing. It's not a major one, but something to look into getting done soon. It's not a difficult one to tackle. And if you got the same problem, slight oil leak from the housing there, then it's a good idea to change it sooner rather than later. That little rubber, the little gaskets get hard and then they start leaking a bit more and more. And that's pretty much it. So I'm hoping this video helps, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.